Elevation Nation, we have on a fantastic guest for you all today. And to be honest, it's hard for me to even describe everything that our guest tonight does. So I'm not even going to try to do it justice, but all I can describe our guest tonight is around the concept of being more. Mallory Rothstein, we call her Mal, does more. And it's why Parker and I hit it off with her when we met. What is it? Was it 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. 2 years ago. Because I think, as you all know, Elevation Nation, Parker and I are obsessed with elevating ourselves and being the best people that we can be and doing more and being more. And I think, Mal, for you, that's a common theme in your life. And so we're really excited to have you on the show tonight and to dig into your story and figure out how you are being more each and every day as well. So welcome to the Elevation Nation podcast. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy that, even though we crossed paths 2 years ago, we kind of reconnected recently and now we're here.
It's amazing. I mean, I remember exactly where we were. I was getting a thing of kombucha, walking back, and next thing you know, we hit off a conversation for like 30 minutes. And it's amazing to come back all this time later, get together for a great conversation. And I noticed this today when I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, Mal. You're from Freehold, which is Springsteenville, right?
Yes,
Bruce
it is.
Springsteen is from Freehold. My girlfriend is from Marlboro, right across the street.
Oh, yes. And Bruce Springsteen actually went to my high school. So that's a fun fact.
Wow. Has he spoke at graduation ever?
No, it's actually funny you mentioned that because that is like a huge thing for me. Because when I gave my TEDx talk, he was like a huge inspiration for it because it was all about high school alumni engagement. And one of the things about him is he actually hasn't gone back to the high school. At least that was, I've asked a lot of people if it changed in like recent years, but I've heard the answer is still no. So if he ever hears this or hears my TEDx talk or something, it's like a goal of mine to somehow get him to go back to the high school in some capacity.
We're gonna work
That's
on
amazing.
it. So, Bruce, if you're listening, go back to Freehold, right? Come on, go home. So
Yeah.
now, because I couldn't do you justice with all the different things that you're involved in, I could have went down your LinkedIn and your Instagram and rattled them off. But I wanted to make sure that you could say all the different things that you're doing in your own words. So, for Elevation Nation, can you give us your own little elevator pitch?
Yeah, of course. So I am Mallory or Mal, either really works. I'm an administrative business partner on the search ads team at Google, as well as the founder of something called More Than an Admin, which is all about helping to influence how people view administrative professionals and help administrative professionals embrace all aspects of their identity and basically become their best self. And outside of, being an admin, I founded something called Learn What Matters, which is about helping high school students understand what personal development is and how can they invest in themselves at a young age. So I have a scholarship program at Freehold High School where I graduated from. And while I am from New Jersey, I am now based in St. Pete, Florida. And that's kind of where I hang out now. That's a little bit about me.
Very jealous because the weather is probably much better in Florida than it will ever be in New York City or DC. Sorry, Sam. But we're going to get into all of that today, Mal. And I just want to break down how we're going to go through this conversation. So Sam and I and Elevation knows that we believe that this concept of mental fortitude is what young adults need to break outside their comfort zone and truly elevate themselves in the real world. And the way Sam and I break down mental fortitude is into three parts: self-awareness, vision, and accountability. And if you have those three things, you'll be able to really, truly figure out yourself and elevate yourself in the real world. So we're going to break it down, the conversation, with self-awareness, vision, and accountability, and we'll get right into it. So for self-awareness, Mal, what word best describes you?
Wow, there's a lot of words that come to my mind because I have like these 5 values and it's kind of like all of them are words that describe myself. But I think a lot of people would describe me as passionate. because everything I do, I'm very passionate. I have to often tell people that when I speak, I'm a very passionate speaker. So I'm like, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just very passionate. So I feel as though if there could be one word, that would probably be the word.
And I think that ties in beautifully, Mal, with being more in this concept that we're going to dig into throughout the day, because being passionate is probably at the root of why you do want to be more yourself and help other people be more through all your different initiatives that you've started, right? It's very easy. I think, we're all young entrepreneurs who have full-time jobs and side hustles, right? And it is very easy to just say, I have a 9 to 6 or an 8 to 10 job that I grind at that uses all my brain power and it pays my bills, and that's enough, right? But I think for many people, us included, and a lot of young adults out there who maybe aren't loving their career, they are looking for that extra something that they can be passionate about and be more. So I think that word, good choice. We didn't plan that, but I think that was spot on. So thank you.
Yeah.
When
definitely.
did you learn that passionate was your word? When when you do things that you're going to go all in on it, was there a moment when you were young that sticks out when you think back about, your life?
I was a very shy and introverted person. I still consider myself very introverted, contrary to what a lot of people believe, because I've kind of forced myself in recent years to embrace being an extrovert when I need to be. But I think when I was younger, when I was comfortable with people, I would definitely be opinionated with like my family in certain situations. But I just remember, this is like so embarrassing because I'm now very embarrassed about this, but I used to like lead the charge when I didn't like a teacher, and I'd be very passionate about like being like, this teacher like needs to be fired or something. And I like what I'm saying, at any time that there was like injustice, I'd get very passionate about it when I was younger. And I think that kind of started like the passion in me, which is such a bad thing, because I used to I always say I need to like go back and say I'm sorry to some teachers because they were probably very nice, but I did not like how they were teaching the class. And I used to lead the charge to try to get teachers fired or like not be my teacher, but I was very passionate. And I think that along my journey, I just got very passionate about different causes. And then it kind of made me just an overall very passionate person.
Sound fearless too. I mean,
definitely
not afraid of the backlash that your teacher, if she didn't get fired or he get fired, that you might get an F on a project if you're just trying to.
I actually have a really I'm going to share this very short story because I think it's a good one.
There
was a teacher I really did not like when I had her, and I wasn't leading the charge on this one, but I was kind of like supporting it on getting her fired. And I remember her coming to the class and like being nearly in tears. And at the one of the last days of school, I went up to her and I said, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm really sorry. And she said to me, you are the only student that ever did this. And we actually ended up being very close. I got to know her story. I ended up babysitting her kids. And like, we still kind of talk to this day, stay in touch. So it's just funny how I went from trying to get this teacher fired to now being friends with this teacher. So you never know. The teachers you might hate the most, you might end up one day giving them a chance and then finding out they're pretty cool.
And I'm sure that's a valuable lesson, I guess, in the real world, too. You're not trying to go out and get people fired.
Yes.
But you can't always judge a book by its cover. With the people that you'll meet both in work and out of work, you may have this bad idea about a person, but then you really get to learn more about them and work with them and really go through the trenches with them. And you're like, wow, you know what? We're different, but this person seems really freaking cool.
Yeah, that was a very pivotal moment for me because, again, it's like people are more than just one aspect of themselves. And then you really have to learn not just who someone is because of one, circumstance that you're in with them. They're more than, being a teacher. They have more things going on. And like I said, I really got to learn that teacher's full story of who they were and understand why they taught a certain way, why they gave assignments a certain way. And then it kind of made me appreciate them a lot more.
So I want to bring it back to self-awareness really quick here, Mal.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about being more and how you've been passionate and you realized from a fairly young age when you put your foot in the ground and wanted to stand up for injustice with teachers that you were passionate and wanted to do more than just school or more than just your 9 to 5. when did you start to realize that, and how did you start to realize that? Because I think a lot of people are listening to this podcast looking for inspiration on how they can get unstuck, right? A lot of people feel stuck in their careers, stuck in their role, stuck in their job, and they want that passion piece. How did you figure it out for yourself?
I think you have to be very open to it. I think a lot of people wait for passion to come to them or like an idea to come to them. And you have to actually be really open-minded and seeking it out. So something I did at a really young age, and I credit one of my grandmothers for getting me a library card really young. And so I read a ton of books and I read a lot of biographies. I mean, every subject I was reading, because I wanted to learn from other people, kind of that, how did they know what they wanted to do? How did they know what they were interested in? Things like that. I read a ton of books. And then when I got stuck early on in my life, I was bullied. That's a big part of my story. And I started watching a ton of Oprah. And from Oprah, I'd watch all these other like I got into like The Secret. I watched Dr. Oz. I knew Susie Orman, like all these people that were associated. And when I saw that they were really passionate about what they were doing, it kind of inspired me. And I didn't have my idea for exactly what I wanted to do with my life with more than admin. I didn't think I would be an admin at Google, to be honest. I thought I was going to be a doctor back then. That was something I was like passionate about. But I think that you have to just be open. You have to hear from other people's stories on what kind of sparked them. And you just have to like live your life and wait for inspiration to kind of hit you and see what you actually like. One exercise I did during my first year of Google that kind of helped me learn what matters was I just asked myself what makes me happy. And I didn't even think of it. I was like, don't think of a career, just think what makes you happy. Do I even know what makes me happy? And I think you have to just constantly be asking yourself those kind of questions.
Was it a struggle at Google, and that was why you were thinking about that or writing that down, or is that a common practice in your life that you're always thinking about those things and bringing yourself and being intentional about being introspective?
Okay, so I wasn't struggling at my job. I had a whole other things going on outside of Google that I had to cut someone out of my life that I really cared about. And I thought a huge purpose of mine was to kind of like save this person, which is very stupid. You should not ever think that your purpose is, so closely tied to another human being like that. But when I had to cut that person out, I was like, who am I? Wait, what is my purpose now? Is it like, I thought so much for these last whatever amount of years that it was to really save this human being and people like that. And it wasn't. And I asked myself that question, but I check in with myself at least a few times a year in like a formal way. But I am someone that is also constantly interviewing myself in the car. I always say that the police probably think that I'm on the phone or something, but I will watch like Joe Rogan or Oprah, or like I'll watch podcasts and I will stop it and answer the question that the interviewer is like asking the person and like think to myself, and I say it out loud. That's a huge thing I tell people is you need to not just write it down. It can't just be in your head. You have to really say it out loud too. So that's something else I do to kind of keep myself self-aware.
Sam and I have interviewed a lot of people and talked about a self-awareness with a ton of people. And I think that is the most compelling way to get truly introspective with yourself. That is so cool. You're driving in a car, you hear an interesting question that they're asking another, Joe Rogan's asking some interesting guest. Mm-hmm. You pause it, and now you're answering it for yourself, what you think about it. And then you're hearing yourself think about that question. That's incredible. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sam, I may have to add that to the repertoire.
I was going to say, and I want to take that one step further, Mal, because one, I love that. I'm going to have to try that myself. But I was actually working with a coach today, a former podcast guest, Jesse Cohen. So shout out, Jess. And he had me do an exercise where I kind of answered one of his questions, so similar to what you were doing, Mal. And then he read my exact answer back to me. And hearing it back of what I said, he said, pretend this wasn't you. How would you feel? And I was like, geez, this is not the answer I want for myself. And so not only saying it, which I think is amazing, and a lot of people now have a tangible way to be self-aware, but if you can, open voice memos on your phone, record yourself, and see how you sound. Are you truly as confident with that answer as you thought you were when you answered it? Do you feel good about that? Do you want to change that answer maybe, but don't know how? Right. And I think by listening to it back, you can then understand if maybe I do need to change, this answer at some point and work towards that. So I love that. That is such a good tangible tip. Thank you for sharing that little nugget with us. I guess I need a car to do that now too. I'm living in the city. I don't have anything. I'll do it on the subway.
Dude, you can look yourself in the mirror when you're brushing, not brushing your teeth, maybe getting out of the shower. You put the podcast on, you pause, you look yourself in the mirror. There you go. You're interviewing yourself, Sam.
Exactly. I mean, I want to shout her out because I feel as I don't shout her out enough. I have an amazing best friend. Well, I have a lot of best friends, but my best friend, Steph, she and I can have real conversations. And when I say things to her, I give her the freedom to say, you're being ridiculous right now, or you're having a moment, or this is the wrong decision. And we have amazing conversations that keep us in check. I feel as though she has made me more self-aware from just having really open, honest communication between each other, and her calling me out when she sees things that I'm doing wrong or things that I'm doing right and I should keep doing. And I feel as though a lot of people are very afraid sometimes to have these, I don't mean real conversations, I don't know, something very surface level. I mean, really deep, intense conversations of being very vulnerable about things that maybe not many people would know about me and wanting honest feedback.
Getting deep about life, about the struggles, and getting vulnerable in the sense that you're talking to that person and you're not expecting them to judge you. You're not expecting them to say, well, Parker, you're just not good enough, or you should have did this or should have done that. It's finding someone in your life who just is there to listen and then give you feedback if you want it.
Yeah, you have to be open. You have to, and that's the thing. We will say to each other, now is a time to give me feedback, or now is a time I just need you to listen. But some people, they're not self-aware because they genuinely are not getting feedback from the people closest to them. And I try to, at least my best friends, give me honest feedback. I try with my family too. Sometimes they give it a little bit harsher than I want it. Or I'm I don't know if that's real or that's just something you want from me, but I try to really allow people in my life to give me the feedback that you need.
So important, right? To have that person in your corner, or hopefully multiple, that will dish it right back to you, because sometimes you don't realize when you need, a shake or a push of encouragement. So I love that. And this was great for self-awareness. I think that was beautifully said. I know I'm going to start answering questions now like a crazy person on the Metro. So more videos to come. Maybe I'll make a TikTok of that. But let's move on now, Mal, to your vision, right? And how you are constantly coming up with the vision for the life that you want to have. So I guess right now, what brings you fulfillment and joy? What buckets of your life?
Oh man, I genuinely live my life hoping that every bucket really does give me joy and fulfillment. And I think everyone during the pandemic, I had to again really check in with myself and ask myself, is the path leading me to the vision that I want with my life? And I think with a lot of women that I know, career is a super big focus compared to maybe where it was years ago. And I had to say, do I want to have a family at some point? Is that really important to me? And to be honest, if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, I don't want a family. I was in a relationship, but I was I don't know if I want kids. And now I'm in a really different place in my life where I'm I want to have a family. I want to have a partner. And that has changed my vision. And with more than an admin and Google and Learn What Matters, to be honest, I took a lot of step backs compared to where I think people expected or wanted me to be. That doesn't mean I'm not working hard. It doesn't mean I don't want those things to succeed, but I'm so much more focused now on family, dating, things like that. Because I felt my vision, when I look back in my life in 50 years, I think I would regret, that wouldn't be the vision that I'd actually truly want, is having this huge career, making so much money and not having people around me that I was super close to. So, I've spent, like I said, I've spent a lot of time with my family recently. I've tried to be there for a lot more big moments. I still am building more than an admin, still building Learn What Matters, still doing great work at Google, but I'm doing it, I feel as though at a much slower pace. And I always say to people, my definition of what slow pace is probably different than some other people's. It just means that I'm not like, I'm actually getting sleep. I'm taking care of myself. My health is number one too right now.
100%.
Compared to like just burning out and living for other people's expectations of me too. Like I had to really ask myself, why am I doing more than an admin and Learn What Matters? Like, do I need to have a huge, 100,000 followers or millions of followers on social media to like make a difference? So every interaction I have with people, I try to like leave them with something positive or thinking differently. I don't view it as so much like I need to have this huge empire and be the next like, Kanye West or something. I view it as every little interaction I have with people, I want to have an impact. And that, I believe, compounded. I might not ever see it in a metric. It might never be measured the way that like you guys can see it, but I'll know that I had an impact on someone.
You can feel it, and it's rooted in your vision, and no one will truly understand your vision as well as you. But I think that goes to my next question. Has your vision ever been challenged by anybody else based on their expectations for maybe what they want for you, and you had to step in and say, you know what? I actually am going the different route.
Oh, a lot. My family, I remember when I quit my first job, and I didn't have another job lined up. My parents were like, what are you doing? Like, you cannot do that. But I didn't feel as though that job like fulfilled me anymore, and I had to leave. So that was a time where a lot of people were like, what are you doing? I was in a relationship with someone. We had two very different visions of what we wanted in life. And yeah, I've definitely had a lot of struggles with, especially my family. I mean, I love them. I think they will always root for me in the long run, but they are definitely sometimes not like they're always like, what do you mean? How are you going to make money with more than an admin or Learn What Matters? Why would you ever leave Google? Like questions like that, like they don't understand. And I have to prove to them. And I tell people like, I've proved to my family a lot. I feel as though in the last few years, on that to trust me, I make good decisions. Even moving to Florida recently, I did that not knowing if Google was going to allow me to work remote or not. Luckily, they approved me to work remote. But a lot of people were like, what are you doing? Like, what do you mean you're going to move and you might not have a job in a couple of months? But I've always been kind of a risk taker, and I've always went with my gut on what feels right to me.
You figure it out because you'll double down on yourself. And you'll get through it, regardless of what walls you'll come across. And also to your point, like, I love my parents, I love my family, and like when they ask, like when Sam and I are doing Elevation Nation, it's like, are you making money off it? I'm like, no. Like, why are you doing it? Why you spend so much time on it? I'm like,
I'm making memories, man. I'm making memories.
Because it has so much more value in my life than obviously $1. Like, I have a job. That's what pays my bills. This is totally different. I get, my satisfaction and gratification from different things. Having conversations with people like you, getting to talk to my best friend every day about life, as well as helping people along the line. And if one day it turns into something where we can make money, sure. But now we're just going along for the ride. And I'm sure you're the same way with many of the things that you're doing.
Definitely. And you have to, I like being challenged a lot because it makes me really question, is this really the right path I'm on? Like, am I so passionate about this that when people are going against me or have different viewpoints, is it worth it? Because some people, I feel as though they do things and they realize too late that they were just kind of doing it for money or fame or something, and they get a lot of hate, and then they're so upset because they're like, they look back, I think that they're like, I don't even want to do this. Like, I've spoken to people like that, like, I didn't even really want to do this. I was doing it for my family. I was doing it for something else. They weren't super passionate about it. It wasn't authentic to them.
It's almost like living in the comfort zone. You're just hanging out. You go to work, you do what you need to do, whether it's good or subpar. You get the bills, pays the bills. It's just enough to get by. You're enjoying. But we're talking about being more on the Elevation Nation podcast. We're talking about using mental fortitude to go above and beyond. So, Sam, I know you have another question, so I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. I was wondering why you were just going to steal the show here, Parker. So, Mal, I wanted to bring it back to more than an admin and vision, right? Some of the work that you're doing is helping to empower admins to see themselves in a broader role as well as the people that they work for, right? And I think that ties very much so into the vision that their bosses have for them, but more importantly, the vision that they have for themselves. And I think part of your purpose is helping people get outside of their comfort zone, realize that these restrictions of a stereotypical title do not necessarily matter anymore, nor should they, and to help them paint a new vision for what their career and what they can offer can be. How do you help people kind of break out of that mold of the comfort zone of I've been here, this is what I'm quote unquote supposed to do, this is normal for me, to realize that their vision that they can have for their role in their lives is so much grander?
I think first you have to actually hear their story, especially on how they got into an admin role. It's very different than a lot of other careers because you don't normally, go to school and you're like, I want to be an admin. There's no school for that. A lot of people fell into the role, whether they wanted to or something happened in their path that kind of put them off, and then they had to just get a job, so they took an admin role. I mean, that's how I started. Is I really wanted to be in social media marketing. I wanted to do a lot of other things, or I wanted to be a founder. I just didn't have my idea yet, and I had a CEO. I gave a speech, and then a CEO came up to me afterwards and was like, "What are you doing with your life, and do you have a passport?" And I was like, "I'm getting rejected from jobs, and I have a passport." And he was like, "Come be my assistant." And I was like, "Okay." But that was not what I really wanted in my life at the time. I just kind of took a chance and said, okay. And then I soon realized how much more influence you can have and how much you can learn from being someone's admin, especially if you want to be a founder, you want to be a top level executive. It's a great role to kind of see what it's truly like and everything that goes into it. And so I usually start with hearing people's stories. And more than an admin was not on my radar until about 2.5, 3 years at Google, where I realized I would have these one-on-ones with other admins, and we do the scheduling or we do whatever our project or whatever we had to do. And then I'd be like, okay, what's your story? And they're like, what? And I'm like, I want to know who you are. And I'm like, I was doing Learn What Matters a lot with high school students. And they would be like, oh man, I wish I had this when I was in high school. And I started realizing that a lot of the same kind of identity issues and stuff that high school students deal with, admins dealt with it a lot. And I'm sure a lot of other people just in general deal with it. And so I try to help them figure out, how do they get into this role? What does this role actually mean to them? Some people want to be an admin. They're a career admin. Some of them are like, I want to get out of this role as soon as possible. And I know that some people have no idea what they want to do and they're just in the role. So I have to start there is where are you in your journey of being an admin? And then I also say, again, who are you outside of your career or outside of working at Google or Microsoft or, whatever company or small business that someone works for? Who are you outside of work? And some people really struggle with that question, especially because our role is so closely tied to executives or a company. When people hear that I work at Google, they're always like, oh my gosh, how is it to work at Google? And I constantly have to remind people, working at Google is a piece of me. It's not all of me. That's why my the More Than an Admin logo is like a puzzle piece, and it has a cape on it. And the puzzle piece is to signify being an admin is, just a piece of us. It's not the whole puzzle piece. And so that's kind of where my starting point is.
It's incredible. I mean, you're helping other people, like we just talked about, become more self-aware about their situation, about where they see themselves in their company, how they see themselves in the grander scheme of the world, and then how they see themselves both personally and professionally. It's so important, I think, for everyone, not just admins, everyone to think about those things, because at the end of the day, whether you're doing amazing or not, there's going to come a time when things may get a little more difficult. and you need to take a step back and be like, is this working for me? Is like, who am I outside of the job? Like, that's the person I want to guide me forward. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But that was great. We talked about vision. It was amazing. And we're on to accountability. And we touched a little bit on accountability when you talked about your best friend holding you accountable when you guys have your deep conversations. But how are you holding yourself accountable every day to tackle your goals at Google, to tackle your goals at Learn What Matters, and all the other things that you're doing? I'm sure you're so busy. How are you holding yourself accountable?
So I every morning say self-affirmations. That's like one thing I do every year, like themes, and then I have like big kind of goals. I don't do like week by week goals or anything. I have just like to-do lists, but I always look at, I say my self-affirmations, and then I always look at kind of like my big goals. And I'm traveling right now, but I normally have them on my desk, by my bed, so that I'm constantly seeing them. So I know like, okay, these are the things that are my biggest focus, and they kind of keep me accountable. I keep a lot of really amazing people around me. Like I said, my best friend Steph is someone that definitely keeps me accountable. I have other friends as well. And, you know, I would say recently I've really started to keep myself accountable, like for health wise. So I'm on a big health kick. Like I'm eating super healthy. I'm walking every day. One, I started working with a coach, someone that was like an expert. And two, I think that I just had to like tell myself, like honestly, it was a simple thing of like, do you actually want to accomplish this or not? Like you can keep being lazy. You can keep like eating like crap. You can keep like doing whatever. I've always been generally healthy, but not like consistently. And so I'm like, I was just like a switch for me. And I started seeing like small increments, literally just like walking every day. Even if it was only 10 minutes, I had to just get myself out. When I started seeing that, it has helped me keep myself accountable. Just like seeing very small, results, small, like, wow, I'm actually doing something that inspires me, that kind of holds me accountable. And I journal. That's the other thing, is I try to journal as much as I can. I'm not like the best. I don't have like any, you know, this is exactly how I journal. Every day is something different, but I try to journal because I feel as though something that I did during quarantine was I looked back at a lot of my journals. And I started seeing myself have a lot of the same themes. It was like the same themes. I'm like, wait, I'm in middle school. I'm talking about this. I'm in high school. I'm in college. I'm in, you know, my first job. Why are certain themes in my life keep on coming up? I'm like, I need to actually, again, keep myself accountable. And by journaling, that was really, really good for me. And so I kind of just like, that was another way that I keep myself accountable, was just journal.
You remind me of Parker. Parker loves his journal. He makes sure everybody knows all about his journal each and every day.
Love it. Love it. And you have a written one. I feel as though a lot of people do like the digital, but I can't do digital journals.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're starting Parker on his spiel. Go ahead, Parker. Talk about your new journal that you love.
Okay. All right. First of all, if we're talking digital journal, we're not talking about a real journal. I don't want to offend you, Mal, or anybody else who has a digital journal.
That's how I believe as well.
You have to be intentional. Put down everything. Get rid of the electronics. Open up that piece of pen and look at the pen. Soak into that piece of paper as you write your thoughts, your ideas, how you're feeling. It's amazing. It's taking something from your mind and putting it on a piece of paper and making it real. We go through life so often thinking about this and that, and it just goes through our head and then it goes away. How about you take it out of your head and you put it on a piece of paper, and then when you look at it, it's real. It's there. It's happening. Now hold yourself accountable to make a change, or start that business, or go walk outside, or you know what? Maybe you want a thing of dessert or something. Go do it. But you know, I found the journaling. I mean, Sam knows, like, it's so cool. It's amazing, and it's like for guys, it's like such a stigma. Like, oh, you journal? Like, no. I am not journaling like you think about it. I am journaling like,
even if you were Parker, I mean, you kind of are, dude.
Yeah, no, no, that's true. That's true.
You're writing down ideas and thoughts and concepts. I mean, you are journaling, man. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's true. No, I totally agree. I'm journaling.
You know, I do a lot of writing letters to myself. or writing letters in general. I do a lot of that. It's not necessarily maybe again what like people consider journaling, like not stereotypical, like typical journaling, but like I write a lot of letters.
Like Dear Diary. No. You know what I mean? No.
I write a lot of like Dear Future Mallory, Dear Past Mallory. I do a ton of that. Dear Future Partner, Dear Future Kids, like all of that kind of stuff I do. And I have a lot of letters to myself. And again, I like look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I like, made it through this tough time, or I like accomplished something that I never thought I was going to accomplish. And that keeps me not just accountable, but very motivated to kind of see where I'm going to be in the future.
I wrote a journal in 2014 and I like read it like once every year. And it's just about what was going on. And it's just like incredible to look back and you're like, dang, I'm the same person I was that long ago. But it's just cool to have. It's like it's you, but it's a different you. You know what I mean? And that's what's so unique about it.
I love it because I look back at some of the things that I wrote, and again, you're like, it is me, but I am so like mentally, I have so much more mental fortitude now. I'm like so much stronger, and I look at myself, and the ways that I write now are a little bit more, they're a little bit different. But yeah, that's definitely something that I love.
Love that. I mean, journaling is amazing. Holding yourself accountable with a coach. But what about other people in your life? Both people but Sam and I have been really interested in asking people, are there people in your world, in your life, that you don't necessarily know, like they don't know you or you don't know them like personally, but they're ones that are mentors in your life holding you accountable?
Oh yeah. I mean, I always say Oprah is like huge mentor to me throughout my life, like definitely helped me. I get very inspired by people. Like I am very inspired by Kanye West. I think he's absolutely crazy, but the creativeness of it, like his creativity to me, like when I think of More Than an Admin, I want it to be like as disruptive in the admin world as like Don Dunn, all his like music is in the music industry. Like I'm really inspired by him with the work that he's done. Trying to think of who else. I love Steph Curry.
He's done incredible work. Especially outside of basketball. I mean, it's incredible.
Again, like people that are kind of like more than just their profession. Like Kanye has the whole fashion thing. Oprah's done so many different things. I'm really inspired by this pastor, Mike Todd, of Transformation Church. But all these people to me are like disruptors in their space. They're people that are very authentic. That's another word that I could have used. I was like thinking about it, like authentic or passionate. But people that are very authentic, very much like they're kind of creating their own lane. They're not, I always say to people, like, you have to sometimes focus on creating culture instead of being so consumed by it. And so I look for people that are doing that. They're trying to create the culture they're trying to create instead of just be influenced and consumed by what's already out there. So those are kind of the mentors that I look for, and people that are just like really pioneers in their industry. It doesn't even matter if it's an industry I care about or not. I'm just inspired by people that are kind of like, again, being the creators in that space. And
that was an awesome answer, because right there, that goes back to what we started with, your first word. Your word describes you, being passion. You're attracted to people who are also passionate and pioneers in their industry. And that makes perfect sense, right? You are wanting to learn from people who share similar mindsets, similar values, and similar ideas to you. So I love that. I think that's great. It's sometimes hard, right, to be a young person in this social media world and knowing who to look up to, who's full of crap, who's actually giving you good advice, who's trying to make a buck off of you. And people are getting better and better at social media, and it is harder and harder to decipher who's genuine and who's not. So yeah, you just look at, like, sometimes I feel like people just get their cred by literally the amount of followers they have, but they could be saying nonsense or the likes that they have on a post. Like, it's crazy. That was something that I had to really say to myself. Like, I love using social media. I probably, if I really wanted to, could have a bazillion more followers and views and all that. I tell people, if I really wanted to, I could wear a bikini every single day on social media and be like having some inspirational quote
out. And I get a bazillion anytime I tested this out. It's like, you know what? I never post bikini or anything. I did that one time, most likes ever. But I had to say to myself, is that like really authentically me? Is that like what I want to be known for? Is like just doing these posts just to make like myself feel good because I'm going to get much more likes than like posting something else. Like I have no idea how to use Photoshop or anything like that, but I hear so many people that I would never think are like, oh yeah, I like, you know, contoured my arm or my face or whatever. I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't know how to do any of that. Yeah. I remember when there was like that black and white like challenge by a lot of women where it was like it was like this empowerment thing. And a lot of people's pictures were like, it was supposed to be this empowerment thing of like you being comfortable in your skin and empowering other women. And it was like a bunch of women posting like these really fake, just black and white photos. So I like posted one that I literally just took a selfie and was like, this is me in black and white. There's nothing to it. Do I look maybe not as beautiful as someone else? Yeah, whatever. But like, this is actually what the post is supposed to be. The movement is supposed to be about, is embracing who you really are. And I think that a lot of people have a very hard time with that. So I look for people, and it's good being an assistant because again, you get to kind of meet other assistants who work with really big people in the world or work with whoever. And I kind of tend to ask them, what are your real thoughts? And you can learn a lot from assistants on if people are real or not. And I've heard from, or drivers, ask those people, you know, is this person the real deal? And they'll usually tell you the truth.
It is interesting, right? Like, who's going to be straight up, who's not? Again, I mean, like, I was trying not to cringe during all that stuff of hearing how people alter themselves on social media because I could go on a rant for the next 20 minutes about social media and how much it stresses me out and how terribly I feel for our generation and future generations of that they're growing up comparing themselves to non-real expectations. And no one is ever going to be happy in the next 40 years unless they start to be introspective and realize that this world that they're seeing on their screen is fake. Again, okay, now I'm going on a rant. Sorry, I'm going. I
was going to say, Sam, I gotta get the stop button.
Yeah, you gotta tell me to stop.
You with journalism on your rant. You with social media on your rant. Loved it.
Yeah, it's just I feel like
this is it's a constant theme that we bring up on the Elevation Nation podcast because it takes a lot of mental fortitude to put the phone down. It's, you know, we get consumed because it has so much. It's got our work on there. It's got our family texting us. It's got the social media. It's got everything we need. And sometimes it's really difficult to get outside that comfort zone, you know, and put it down and just be you.
I mean, that's why I like to journal, like writing, and I like to read an actual book. My parents bought me a Kindle a while ago, and I was like, and they're like, you don't like it? I'm like, I like going to the library and like holding a book because it's the one time that I like don't have to be on my cell phone. And recently, I used to be very accessible, actually to the point where when I was younger, people would be like, you seem so desperate because you're always available on your phone. And now I'm like, I probably took that way too much to heart. I was like, oh my gosh, people think I'm like, have no friends and I'm desperate. And now I like don't answer people back right away. And I feel is like very bad for that. But I've also tried to be a lot more present when I'm with my family, when I'm with my friends, when I'm out, and try to say to people, if you don't want me on my cell phone when I'm with you, then like you have to know that when I'm not with you and you're messaging me, you're not going to get a response so fast from me. And I've had to really say to myself that that's okay. And that the people that love you and care about you or really want to work with you, they'll wait. And so I've kind of tested that out a lot lately. Not because I'm trying to be an asshole. It's just I don't want to be on my cell phone 24/7.
Exactly. And I think, you know, we don't have to go down too much of this social media phone rabbit hole, but by taking some time to unplug, it allows you to, and I'm bringing it full circle here, be more. Be more in that moment. Be more of yourself. Be more of the person that you want to be, true to who you are, true to your vision, and true to be able to hold yourself accountable, right? When we eliminate some of these distractions, we allow ourselves to be more. So I love that. Mal, I want to ask you now as we move into our final section. So we talked about self-awareness. We talked about vision. We've talked about accountability. And now we bring it to our final two questions that we ask every single guest on the Elevation Nation podcast. So the first one I want to ask you is if you could give advice to your about to graduate college self, what would it be?
So I would have a couple things. One, I would say your health has to be first. It has to be. There's, we see with everything with COVID and the pandemic, a lot of people are really unhealthy. And then when they get this virus, it's just not good for them. And so I would say to myself, you're being healthy to prepare for a moment like this. That's why you're healthy. And then I would also say that be very careful with the romantic relationships that you get in. Because one romantic partner can bring you very close to your goals or can completely distract you from them for a very long time. And so I would say those two things are probably the biggest pieces of advice that I would share.
And journal more.
Yeah, exactly. In a real journal.
In a real journal. Definitely with a real pen and real ink and everything in between. But Sam, you gave me the honor of the last question of the night, which is... I thank you for that. And like Sam said, we talked about self-awareness, vision, and accountability, and this concept that Sam and I, we came across it, I think, at the beginning of the pandemic, and we became obsessed with it. And it's the theme for our entire podcast. And personally, it's the theme of how I go about my life every day. Sam and I gave you our definition of mental fortitude. Self-awareness, vision, and accountability. Those are the three things you need. But that's our definition, Mal. We're curious, what does mental fortitude mean to you?
I think it means just continuing to take steps forward and really be able to heal yourself as when you go through something, you need to take time to heal and really reflect and then move forward. I think a lot of people don't do that enough, and then they don't have the mental fortitude to go through something else of the same. That's why a lot of people you see, they go into bad relationship to bad relationship to bad relationship because they haven't taken the time to really build that mental fortitude and reflect and heal. And so that's what I would kind of say, is to keep taking steps forward and to reflect and heal along the way.
Well said.
That was beautiful.
Short and sweet. Yeah, that was great.
That's what's fun. We get to hear so many different answers of mental fortitude. So we'll add that to our log of unique mental fortitude answers. That was perfect. But Mal, seriously, thank you. Yeah, we'll write it in a real journal. Thank you for opening up with us, with Elevation Nation, sharing your story, sharing, self-awareness, vision, accountability, and your version of mental fortitude. I think, if you were talking about it earlier, that you want to have an impact and feel that impact and just help people somehow. And that's why, all three of us get along really well, is that if we can help one person with the stories and the questions that we asked and talked about today, that's all we want and all we need, right? So thank you for opening up.
Thank you so much for having me. And I have one request from you two and all of your guests, which is if you ever meet someone that's in any kind of admin role, you really view them as if you are viewing them the same as an executive or anyone else, and you really see them as a human being, because there's a lot of admins that you'd be very probably surprised on a lot of the things that we go through on kind of not being treated the same way. So that's my big kind of mission in life, is to make sure that people view admins, the right way as a human being. And that's all I ask.
Snaps to that.
I love it. And we're going to link to all of your social media accounts for More Than an Admin and all your other initiatives as well. So if people want to follow you and your story and your journey there, they'll be able to in the bio of this podcast. So Mal, thank you again. Elevation Nation, another guest in the books, another impressive person that resonates with Parker and myself, and hopefully their story resonated with you too. So until next week, peace. Beautiful.